Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
Hey everyone, Sue here at 1A Auto, and today we're going to show you how to do valve covers on a 3.6 on a 2015 Wrangler Jeep. Need any parts for your car? Click on the link below and head on over to 1AAuto.com. So first thing we did was we opened our hood, and a good thing about a Jeep, you can bring it all the way back. And I usually put like a cloth or a piece of material there so that it stops the hood paint from hitting, and you can rest it there. Now you've got this open compartment to work. So it makes it a lot easier to see and work on. First thing we got to do is remove the engine compartment cover. Just pull it up. First thing I'm going to do is disconnect the negative side of the battery. I strongly recommend that whenever you're working on the engine compartment, because we're going to be disconnecting electrical harnesses, and you don't want to short anything out or have any power surge when you reconnect it. So 10mm socket, I'm going to loosen up that bolt on the negative cable. You don't have to take it all the way off. Basically is a squeeze style. So with loose like that, I'm going to grab the terminal and wiggle it back and forth and lift it right up. Now I'm going to personally make sure I tuck this down under. I don't want it sitting beside it. It can get pushed over and it will ground the vehicle. I'm going to take the airbox off to access the valve cover. There's several things to get in there. So undo the 4 clips. 2 in the back here, 1 here, and then 1 on the side. And just push on them. I'm going to do the clamp on the throttle body first. We don't need to take it off of the airbox down this end because we're going to take the whole hose out. There's 1 piece. Loosen that up, and then with a 10mm socket, take these bolts off, the mounting bolts. Don't forget to take the radiator overflow hose. And we're just going to take it out of that holding bracket. Just pull it right out like that, and it can stay attached. There's 1 breather tube right here. I'm just going to grab it and push firmly with my hand, wiggle it back and forth. Take it off from here. Let's see what we get else. We have an air temp sensor, so we're going to find the connector, which you can see if I can bring it around here. See the tab right there? There's a tab, so I'm going to push on that, squeeze it, and pull on the sensor connector. Now this is clear to get out of the way. I'm going to take the air filter out of the way. I'm going to end up pulling the bottom housing off. We have to get in here, and I want a clear visual. So this is only mounted on like 3 rubber bushings. So I'm going to grab it firmly and pull. Plus it gives me a good reason to clean that out. Throw that right in the trash, tip it upside down, bang it out. In order to get to the passenger side valve cover gasket, which I'm doing, the coolant hoses have to come out. So I'm going to raise the vehicle up and drain the radiator. Before I start draining the radiator, I'm going to take this splash shield down because the petcock is right above it and it will just make a mess. It will run across the bottom, miss the bucket completely. So there seems to be 4 push pins in the top. Start in the middle. I just use a pair of angled needle nose. There's a bracket right here. And then 1 on the other side. So the petcock is located on the passenger side of the radiator, and the lever part is facing the front of the bumper. So I'm going to get a pair of the needle nose on there and see if I can just turn it. You can see that? counterclockwise, and then I should be able to finish it with my hand. It pulls out as it twists. So it's not like a small tight screw, it's a big twisting screw. So when it starts to drip, it could just pop right out. Okay, I'm gonna get a pair of good pliers on there. Now I can twist and pull at the same time. Now with it starting to come out, I purposely left the radiator cap on so that it doesn't shower out till I bring it down to the level. Then I'll open the cap and the suction will stop and the big flow will happen. Okay, now I can take the radiator cap off and I'll really see the radiator fluid come right out. There we go. You can even hear it. Now the coolant's draining, I'm going to disconnect the mounting bracket for the coolant lines. It's a 10mm socket. And there's two of them. There's quite a bit of hoses here. You see 3 in the back, and I think there's 2 in the front. I'm going to set those on my tray. Now I'm going to take the hose clamps off of all the hoses going to these aluminum tubes. I just use a pair of regular pliers. Squeeze the clamp. You can bring it up, put it on the tube. There's one down here. And then there's 3 back here. This one looks like a real fun one to get to. Let's see how I'm gonna get in there. There we go, I think I got it. Nice. So I have this tool that has like a pick on it, but it's the opposite, so you're not pulling towards your body style and you're not piercing. So it goes in, I'll show you how it works. So you find the tube in the hose and you run it along the seal of the hose. And that way it breaks the seal where it's been stuck for a while. And you just work it around. And it doesn't damage the hose with a pair of pliers. Sorry if my hand's in the way. Now that's broken free all the way around, I should be able to take that out of there. And I grab the hose with my hand and slide it off. There we go. So the coolant's not drained enough for the lowest point. I don't want to make a big mess on the floor, so I'm going to leave that loose. Work my way up and see if the coolant's drained from up here. Pretty neat tool because you can feel it break free. Look at that, here comes the coolant, more out. That tells me that I can take these off over here. So I've got a hose pincher so it doesn't damage the hose. And now I can pinch that lower hose and lose minimal fluid come out. Now I've got the freedom to move this up and out of the way. I'm gonna leave it like that. If I don't need to undo the hoses the rest of the way, I won't. I'm gonna disconnect the main harness on this side to this connector. Looks like it runs for the coils and the cam sensors. So I'm gonna start by pulling the red button forward. And then this looks like it's got the slide. It's gonna go this way. I wonder if I pull on that. Bet it's a squeeze thing or something. There we go. I'll just pull it towards you. So from this side I saw that tab and I pulled on it, pushed on it, I mean with my little pocket screwdriver, but now with it at this angle, all you gotta do is push down on that. So when it's lined up, there we go. So when it's lined up and it's down like that, this tab, push on it. Squeeze it and pull. There we go. So now I'm going to restart removing the stuff to get the steel bracket out. So I have a emission tube right here with a little clip. I'm going to use my needle nose and I pull up on it. That way I keep the clip in contact full so I can reuse it. Same with this main harness. It's got a little body clip underneath it. And just slide this underneath. Push up. Now I can reuse it. Okay, now I think I'm ready to take this bracket out. So it's a 10mm socket to get this bracket out of here. We have 2 bolts up here, and there's 2 nuts off studs on the side of the valve cover. I'm gonna get these 2 out of the way. Now I'm gonna see if I can get down below there without an extension. Let's see if I can make it. I might have to pry back on this bracket, this little plastic piece that separates the battery. Let's see if there's one more in the back. Yep, so I'm gonna loosen that one up. So now I can take the nuts off the studs in my hand. Let's get to the back one here. All right, now we should be able to pull that bracket up. Let's see what we clear. There we go. So those are the 2 down below that have the studs coming through with the 2 nuts on. Now I'm going to start undoing the harnesses from the valve cover. These are the cam sensors in the front. Looks like we have an intake and an exhaust. I'm just going to squeeze the tab and pull it. There's a tab on top. Squeeze it and pull. Do the same to each coil. There's 3. Push down on this tab. Hear that click? Pull it. And the other cam sensor in the back here has a red clip, which is that lock safety clip. Push that out. There we go. You might not be able to see it with my hand, but I'm going to push down the tab. Cool. So now let's take each coil out. Looks like a 10mm socket. It's like I always say, put the coils in the order you take them out, especially if you're putting the used ones back in. Only if you're putting the used ones back in. It's just a good way of keeping track. Twist and pull. Now I'm going to break free the harness. I think it's 3 points. There's one here, and one here. Yeah, possibly one on the back, but we're going to break it free from the valve cover because that's going to come out. So I just get my needle nose pliers. And this brittleness is from the heat of the engine. The plastic just gets all brittle and heat breaks it. There's one. And don't be too concerned if you break the clip because it's, like I just said, the heat, it makes the plastic brittle. And it's what happens. One more right here. Here we go. Perfect. Let's see if we have enough room to wiggle that valve cover through. If not, well then we'll do other things when we get to that point. Okay. I'm going to remove this emission tube, and it runs across the top of the valve cover so I can pull that out easier. So I'm going to disconnect it from the upper intake, plug them over here, and follow it over to here. Let's see, looks like it goes in this plastic clip. Get this tab open. It looks like it's two separate tabs. There we go. Then I'm going to push down on this clip and separate the line. Now I can get this line completely out of my way. Now the harness, I've already done all the connectors. I'm going to leave the injectors connected. The harness one's way down to the crank sensor, so I'm going to try to avoid taking that whole thing, but I think I'm going to disconnect it from the alternator. And it's already been disconnected from the negative battery, so that'll be safe. So that way I can get a little bit more pickup pulling up on this harness to get this valve cover out. So we get the safety red clip here, and it looks like 14 millimeter. So I disconnect the positive wire to the alternator. I like to put the nut right back on that stud so I don't misplace it. I always put the plastic cover over the metal just in case I forget or accidentally that negative cable hits that post. If that's out in the open, it's going to short everything out, spark. So now I'm going to pull back the red tab here and disconnect the regulator side of the alternator. That's the safety tab. Now I can push down on that and pull. Yeah. Looks like we have a little bit more throw. So once I disconnect the valve cover bolts, we'll go from there. Okay, so now I'm going to start taking the valve cover bolts out, and they're an 8 millimeter socket. And I'm just going to start from the center. See if the bolt comes all the way out. Nope. So that's the good thing about these modern, I say modern cars like I'm, you know, I'm an old lady. The newer plastic valve covers, they leave the bolts in there so that they don't come out. They have a two-stage to them. That's a good thing and could be a bad thing. It's good because you won't lose it, but at the same time, it could get in the way of pulling the valve cover up. It's such a tight area. I think I'm going to end up having to really squeeze down on the bottom there. Maybe use a swivel. I just ended up taking the extension off, and I can put the deep socket. You definitely need a deep 8 millimeter socket because the back ones down here on the bottom half have a stud on the top of the actual bolts. Now I'm back to the coolant tube that I had set aside like this, thinking it was clearance, but we have to now. I can get in the back. I can see that this emission tube, this plastic one, runs down and goes behind the head on the valve cover. So I need to remove that. So I'm just going to take the other two hoses off that go to the engine here from this coolant tube, which I've already undid the clamps. So I can just wiggle it off. Last one. I'm just trying to break the hose off of the aluminum. Sometimes it gets oxidized. So I'm being careful, I'm not puncturing the hose. Paying attention. That should be good. Let's see if we can twist it. There we go. Now it seems like I have a little bit more movement back here. See if I can disconnect it so I can get to the bolts. You can't get to the back bolts because the harness and that emission tube is right on top of it. There we go. There is a it's like a C plastic clamp that's attached to this part of the harness that wraps around that emission tube back there. So now let's see if I can get that out of the way. I'm going to end up pushing this emission tube out of the way enough, hopefully, that I can get back to that valve cover bolt. Now I finally got the right height extension, I think. Let's see if we can get on that. There we go. So we're gonna have to take this sensor out anyways. It's a T30. I'm pulling the Torx bit out on this rear valve cover sensor. Okay, pull the sensor out. So the last bolt is back here in the left rear corner. You cannot physically see it, but you can feel it with your hand. So I hope I guide this down there and get that socket on there right, so I can break that free. So there is the rear bolt that's causing this havoc. And all I did was take that bolt out of that fender well, and I'm gonna now just get that last bolt from through here. This bolt right here, 10mm socket. And we have one on the outside of the fender well here. That'll make it a little easier for me. So far we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts that are out in the open, 10mm socket. Once we get these broken out, taken out, we're gonna hope we're not breaking them out. Once we can take them out, we'll see what kind of plastic clips we need to remove. Take this body clip out. 2 for 2. There seems to be one up here. So they rivet it with plastic rivets to the flare. Now with my body clip tool, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to make sure I'm going to try to go between the two plastic pieces. can actually see them out there. I wonder if I squeeze them with a pair of needle nose. That way I don't have to, what I'm doing is I'm taking my plastic clip tool, squeezing it in between the body clip, and then I'm taking my needle nose, pinching the two back flares so it pops through, see? Then I got one more down here, so there's 3 back here total. Nice. Yeah, right here. So directly up here on the inside. Got a 10 millimeter. Oh, take that back. That is 13. We get to undo the harness. I can see here. I'm going to disconnect the harness right here. Push down that tab. So disconnect it from the harness there, and then we just pull it right down. Now you can see the bolt that I'm getting to. This back one right here. There it is, all the way out. I'm just going to take a mirror real quick and see if I can see the back side here that there's nothing else I'm missing before I start to pry on that. So you can see the oil leak, back valve cover corner here, just pouring out. It's leaving a puddle on the floor, so I have to do that valve cover. See if I can use my metal flat tool here just to get the valve cover to break free. Yeah, it's lifting up. Go. Okay, now we're going to go back up on the top and break it free the rest of the way. So I had to pry the air breather tube off the back here, and I had to go down below through the fender well and just push up the rubber around the boot because it's that thick of like a 5/8 hole size, and it wouldn't release. So now that I have it released down there, I can manipulate this up through. And maybe we can get the valve cover out a little bit easier because it's hitting the hose. There we go. There it is. So this, you can see, seats all the way down to here. So pulling on it, it's impossible. So I went up underneath, I took a nice non-sharp flat edge and pushed the rubber up. So, come up. So you can't take the valve cover off until you remove the PCV sensor that is bolted to the back of the valve cover, just like the front sensors are here. Hopefully there's only 2 Torx heads, T25. Hopefully they're just, because I can't even see back there. But that has to come out to take the valve cover out. If not, you're going to break it. So once you figure out if you can get T25 Torx bit on there with an angled head. I broke it free, and I can get it with my hands now. Back it out. I was just going to say, I hope they let that bolt stay in because you can't even see it, but nope, it just fell out. So I have to find that because I don't want it to go into the head. So the other one is closer to this side of the fender, so you can really get in there. Good news is they're not like extremely tight. Once you break it free with the Torx, you can put your fingers right on it. So spin it up. Now you don't have to take the fender well out. I'm doing it for a visual for you guys, but it did make my life a lot easier too. So if you get the time, take the fender well out, and it can be a lot less frustrating for you. So now I'll get 2 bolts out for that PCV sensor. I'm gonna pop that out. There we go. There it is. That is the PCV valve for this vehicle. Let's see what else we're gonna be hitting. Seems to be this emission line. So we'll have to manipulate that from the top to come on over. I think while I'm here, I'm going to disconnect the dipstick tube bolt. You can see it right here. It's a 13mm socket. Yeah, so you don't even have to take the bolt all the way out. It does have a notch cut out in the bracket. It's more welded to the oil dipstick. See the notch. I'm just gonna take it out because I'm gonna end up frying it. So, like I said, I was gonna get to this point to see if I don't have to disconnect the injector harness to the harness to the injectors, but I do. So I'm gonna pull off. Okay. So you gotta pull that red tab up and push in on that black piece. Well, that top one, the first one was definitely frozen. Yeah. All right, so now I've hopefully got it free enough to come straight out here. Telling you, boy, oh boy. There you have it. You name it, it's in the way. Here is our passenger side valve cover that we just took out. I'll show you the back side. This is like the breather tube, PCV valve, I think is what they're gonna call it. And that goes in there. Those are the 2 torque head bolts you had to take out. You have to take it out because see the depth? It sits on the cam in there. So you can't get it past because the cam lobe goes inside there. Once you get that out, now we're clear to remove the actual valve cover gasket itself. I'm going to have to remove the old gasket and the front cam sensors. You can see some old RTV right here in those sections. I'm going to flip it this way. You've got your 2 front sensors. I'm going to take those off with a T25. Each one of them has 3 mounting screws. Now when I take these off, I'm going to make sure I put them in order from the top bank to the downward bank. One is marked with a gray mark. Factory must have done that. See it right on the tip there. So I know the one with the gray goes on the top cam, which if I go look at the engine, is going to be the intake cam. The kit I got comes with a new gasket for this. So I'm going to sit that up right there, the screws. We're going to take this gasket out, remove the exhaust cam sensor. I think it's a cam timing sensor, because that's a cam sensor back there. gasket out. Now we get the kit comes with a new one of these too. So I've got a seal puller. I'm just going to get in there and pry up on it. You can try a flathead screwdriver just to make sure that you know this is plastic, so you can't damage it. So let's flip it around. See if I can get my seal tool remover in here. These are the spark plug chamber seals gaskets. Should be 3. It's a V6, 3 per side. Take a note of how these go in. A lot of people, I've seen people take these. These are the new ones. So that's the back side, and that's it. A lot of people think that they go the smooth side up. You would think that, but the chamber seal is a tube, so you want that to have the lip. This is the side you don't want the oil to come by. So the side that usually faces the oil is actually facing the top part. Make sure you don't install those backwards. Now it's ready to go in the tank, and let's clean it up. Just making sure wherever the gaskets sit, I'm just trying to make sure there's no oil. So now I have my variable time sensor. That's going to be the exhaust one. First one I'm going to put on. Cleaning it up, make sure there's no oil in there. I'm going to put my new gasket on. Here. Just simply push it into the groove. Work your way around. You're gonna make sure it seats and it's flush. There you go. The sensor's are at an angle, facing that way. So I can put my Torx bits, Torx screws, bolts, whatever you want to call them. It's a 25 Torx head. Torque on this is 35 inch-pounds. I'm just going to make sure they're all bottomed out before I torque anyone. Okay. It's 35 inch-pounds. Perfect. Same procedure on the front intake, on the intake cam sensor. Clean it, put the new gasket on, and torque it down to 35 inch-pounds. So here are the chamber seals, and I'm putting the tapered, sealed, facing into the engine, and the open part of the seal on the top half of the cover. What I like to do is push down the best I can with my thumbs. Sometimes you can get it almost all seated down there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my toolbox and see if I have a socket that fits this diameter. And I'm not going to hopefully have to use a hammer. If I put the socket on, I can probably push it down to the base of it. I don't want to damage the seal or break it. So I found a socket that fits on top of that seal pretty good. And I put my extension on there so I can use the palm of my hand and push down. There we go. I'm going to move on to the next one. Make Make sure it seats as straight as possible. And maybe you can use your socket and push it right down. Perfect. Feels good. If you look on this side, you can see that they're all the way down. The sleeve is right to the end, so that's perfect. Now I'll install the valve cover gasket. These are nice, they have tabs on them. So you have to line up all the tabs. So you've got the block and the tab, and it goes right here. You got a cutout in the valve cover for the actual tab. Place it down, and then the molding part of the gasket will just lead you around. There's the other square block. I'm just pushing it down till it goes down on the, see the ridge? Ridges go right into that plastic and they kind of seat themselves. Making sure that every time I come to a tab, there's a spot for it, which there is. Okay, what I like to do is, because I'm on this nice clean, I'll put this down like that. I'll give it a good push. So when we clean the head, now we're going to move and clean the head surface where this mounts. And you're going to remember to put, when you install on the head, some sealant, black RTV, or as long as it's RTV, on all spots of where there's a cutout notch. So there's only 2. So now I'm going to clean the head surface before I put the new valve cover on with the valve cover gasket. Pushing away from the cylinder head, trying to keep no dirt, trying to keep any dirt from falling down in there. And then I've got a metal scraper wherever there's RTV. Let's see, that wants to go down in. Some more RTV down here. Just guiding it on the aluminum. You don't want to gouge it. Now on the back here is where it was leaking, so I want to make sure that once I clean it up, I want to give it a good visual to make sure I have no damage to the head. Shouldn't, it has low miles. And I don't think anyone's been in here, so. Looks pretty good all the way around, so now I'm getting ready to put my RTV in the 2 spots. It's where the timing chain cover meets the cylinder head. And then one down below here. I want just like 1/8 of an inch of bead. There you go. Okay. If you watched earlier, we had a grand old time taking this out. Take this harness, move it up, out of the way. You gotta be more agile putting it in because you don't want to rip the new valve cover gasket. Okay, now I can go down to the fender well, see what's hitting in the back there. So on the back of the valve cover back here, where that cam has that extension on the cam for the PCV adapter, it's literally snug up against the cover on the inside. So it gives you just enough room. So I came down here and I just put it a little bit on there and gave it a pry. It fell right down. So now I'm going to bring it back to the ground, and from the top I'm going to push those spark plug chamber seals down and hopefully seat the valve cover. So So now with the valve cover in place, just give it a good push down. Now there is no torque sequence for these bolts, just the torque specs. So it's like anything, you're going to go from the center out when we get into torquing it. Right now I'm just going to definitely hand tighten all the bolts down all the way around. Then we'll torque it up. So this is the one bolt that was giving us a headache removing it. It's one of the reasons I did take the fender well out. And it's a slow process back here. I can't even move it with my finger, so I'm just going to do quarter turns. The valve cover gasket torque bolts is 106 inch-pounds, and like I said, I don't have a schematic, so I'm going to go from the center, crisscrossing outward both ways at 106 inch-pounds. So I went around twice, torqued them, double checked them twice for the torque, and now we're ready to start assembling the rest of everything else that goes on there. While I'm down here, I'm going to put the dipstick tube bolt in. Just hand tighten that. That was a 13mm socket. So now I'm going to get my ratchet and just install that. And now it's time to put that PCV housing in the back of the valve cover. I got a new gasket. It doesn't come with the set, you have to buy it separately. I got a new gasket, cleaned it up, the housing itself, and now I'm going to slide it back here. Make sure the hose part is facing up. You can feel the mounting holes for that. Line those up. So now I'm going to try to, while it's up in the air, I'm going to put the bottom mounting screw in. There we go. And it's you can't see it, so everything's by feel. And that's the T25 Torx bit head screw. There's two of them, one at 6 o'clock and one at 12 o'clock. The torque specs for this is 35 inch-pounds. I don't expect anybody to torque it because I'm not going to be able to get a torque wrench in there, but just use your best of your ability. In other words, don't rank on it. Just going to snug it down. It is a plastic sensor into a plastic valve cover. So that's it, I got it on there, snugging it. Now I'm going to lower the vehicle and put the bolt on the top. Putting the top torque screw on that PCV housing. Hopefully that's good enough. And now we're ready to, I think I'm going to put the vent tube in, the one that ran down, onto that PCV housing first. Actually, you know what? Let's put the cam sensor in. So we get a new gasket with that valve cover set for this cam position sensor. I'm just going to seat it. The directions say to put the gasket on the sensor before installing into the cover. The bolt goes all the way through, I just cleaned it from any debris, and then I'm going to place it down in here and seat it. Trying to find the location of that. There we go. Now I can push down. That was a T30 Torx head mounting bolt. Just going to snug it down, then I'm going to get my torque wrench. This also has a torque spec to it. You can see it pulling that gasket right down in. That's perfect. Okay, that's snug. Now I'm going to get the torque wrench. So the torque spec is 80 inch-pounds for this cam position sensor. There you go. And that is a T30 Torx head. So now I'm going to put the PCV hose, vent hose, back in first. That, looped down behind here. There's an actual mounting place for it here on the actual intake. There's a couple of guides. It'll snap right in. So put the hose, line it up, and then there it goes. It snaps right in. There's cutouts in the plastic intake. So now below here, you'll put the elbow, the rubber hose with the elbow right on that PCV valve that's mounted in the back. You won't be able to see it. There we go. And that actually has a seat inside, so once it goes down, it snaps right over like the nipple form. You feel it pop down on. You want that to have a good seal to it. All right, before we go any further, I'm going to reconnect my injector with the harness here. Clicks down, and then you push that red tab down. You can hear it lock. We'll get the guide pins for the right here on the valve cover for the main harness. Push those down. And there's this nice long one back there. Gives an extension on it. There we go. This I'm going to leave apart till I put the bracket on, using my coil marks. So this one's going to go over here. And I've got my timing sensors. Snap it down. And while I'm here, I might as well just do my ignition, I mean my alternator, sorry. The alternator wire has a nice little spot to it with this ear on here. So it goes right down and slides right into one of the plastic slots. So now that won't move on you. That's a 13mm socket. We're going to snug that right down. You want to hold the cable and the head of the ratchet. And you want to put negative force pushing down that cable because it's just a snug. That's a copper bolt, and that stud will snap real easy. And that is not going to be pretty. That's an alternator. Okay, now I'm going to connect my cam sensor in the back here. There we go. Push that in and lock it. Might have to get my pliers to lock that. Okay. Now we have the emission hose. This went all the way down here. I was trying to find a location for this. That's why I was like, where does this go? But there's a bracket that gets mounted here, and that's going to slide into the bracket. So to re-hook that back up, it's really easy. Just click it on. Locks itself on. You can almost see where this thing sat before. Lock that one down. It's got the same size shape as the other hose that's going over there, and then we're going to run this one over here. Put it right on the intake. And that's there. right, I say let's do the, let's put the coils on. Here's the front cylinder. Start that bolt. It's going to be a 10mm socket. We'll put all the coils in, and then we'll tighten it down. So the torque spec on the coils are 71 inch-pounds. So now we got to put the bracket back in, and that had the 2 ears that go down on the studs on the valve cover. So we're going to lift the emission tube up, line those studs up, and hopefully it should fall right down on it. There we go. Let's get that out of the way. There we go. Lines up. Perfect. So the plaques, there's screws that go into the intake. Those are on this end. It's a 10mm socket. Because that's plastic intake, just an ear, and it's like wood screw type thread. I'm just gonna snug it. Well, as soon as it stops, I'm stopping. It's just to mount the harnesses. And then you've got 2 nuts that go on the studs down there. This is gonna be a 10mm socket also. Here's the back one, and then we're going to do the front one. All right, now you can see the mounting with this emission tube definitely mounted. Get it right there. This one must have gone on the top of it. There we go. So we're going to put that plastic tab right in there. There we go. And then this one, you can see there's a hole right down over here. Perfect. Now I'm going to connect my main harness here. That's the push in. Now push the gray piece down once it's connected, and then you put the red tab right in that lock. Then there's 2 little mounting brackets. There you go. Now we can get the coolant tube. So I'm going to take a little penetrating spray and just coat these so that the rubber hoses go on a lot smoother. Makes my life a little easier. And now we're going to line up the aluminum tube. So the bracket goes right there. So it's kind of self-explanatory, I can see it. There's the bracket. Let's place it down on the bracket. So this is a straight-on hose, so that's going to go down here. And then there's this hose at the 90-degree angle. Then I go over here. And then this one. Okay. Now I'm going to put those 2 nuts on the bracket. It's a 10mm socket. Make sure this clamp is on its way, because of my luck I'll tighten that down. I'll be stuck in there. Okay, let me get a socket. line up the back one. Okay, now we need to get a pair of pliers and put the hose clamps on. I'm going to put the hardest one to get to. Put that one on first. Just down here. At least I made it on there before it fell off. Okay, I like to line up the original markings. See how that has that marking right there. So this was not like that, it was it's right there. Oh, this one even has a white line on it. Okay, so we're going to bring this one, last one down. Now I can release my clamp on that hose. So now I'm going to put the upper hose on, which you don't have to take off. If you watch the whole video, I took that off to help drain down through the petcock. It had like an air pocket in it, so I just took that off to help. Perfect. Nope. See how that's off? You want it to seat the way it was. The hose is already worn in like that. Perfect. So here we have the airbox. I'm going to just spray the rubber bushings with some penetrating spray so that those pop right in a lot easier. So this part, you've got the 1, 2, and 3, so line it up. Once we get them lined up, you just push it down. There you go. Reinstall the air cleaner. Remember there's a tab on the corner that has a flat tab. I want you to line it up that way. Push it down, seat it. Now we can put the top of the airbox cover on. Okay, don't forget you have an air temp sensor right here on the air inlet hose. So I can see the connector down here. I'm going to bring it up and connect it. So there it goes. That way I don't forget about it and I don't have to struggle trying to put it back together. This hose goes up on the top of it for right now. Now we can bring this down, put the air hose on there, vent tube hose. That goes all the way down. Make sure your clamps are out of the way. There we go. And just push on those spring clamps in. There's 4 of them. The other one, last one, is way down here. We have 2 mounting bolts to the top of the radiator shroud. That's a 10mm socket. Start that by hand. That's where the overflow hose goes in this bracket like that. So once that's in, 10mm socket, just snug them up. And the last is the clamp for the throttle body. That's an 8mm socket or a flathead screwdriver. snug. Perfect. So now that the coolant hoses are all attached, everything's ready to go, I'm going to tighten up on the radiator petcock, and that is going to be a clockwise. Turn it, push in and turn it clockwise. You'll feel it bottom out. That is the position it was in, the handle was straight up and down. That should be seated perfectly. Now we're going to lower it and add the coolant. So I put this burper funnel on, and it's a great tool if you don't have it. Just check into it, and you just top off your fluid. Now this is actually a yellow, it's a universal long life coolant, because this Jeep calls for a long life coolant. So as you fill that funnel up, it just burps its way down, and you leave that attached when you run it. Once your valve cover is complete and you're ready to start your car up, don't forget to reconnect the negative cable. Make sure all your electrical connectors are fully connected and you're ready to go. It's a 10mm socket. Always make sure your cable's all the way down on the post. See them come through like this, way up there. Not doing the job. Make sure they go all the way down. I'm not yelling at you, just telling you. Snug it down. Let's start her up. I had this thing running for about 50 minutes and it burped, reached temperature. I had the spill-free funnel on it, so I didn't make a huge mess, and I could watch the actual fluid go up and down, raise with temperature, and watched it burp. So I knew the thermostat opened up. You can get one of these tools if you don't have one. It's convenient, it's the best way to do coolant. We sell it at 1aauto.com. So strongly recommend that if you're gonna do something with engine work. Now that I had it running, I shut it off. It's probably been about 20 minutes or so, and now I can put the cap on. The fluid is right at the top of the neck. And in the overflow, the fluid is up at the max where it's gonna be when it's hot. And don't forget that when you do anything with your engine running, keep an eye constantly on the temp gauge. So that way you just keep checking it every couple of minutes, every 7-10 minutes, check it, make sure it doesn't go excruciating to the high end hot, because if you have an air pocket inside that engine, it might not even show coolant out here, it could be wicked low, but if an air pocket's in there, that's gonna shoot that temp up, and that's not something you wanna do. Other than that, we're ready to rock and roll, as Andy says. To put the engine cover back on, you have the 2 notches back here, and those are gonna go right into those eyelets. You can see the little C-hooks. So, line myself up, I push down, and then you have these 2 top dimples that stick out. You have one here, and then the rubber bushings that slide on them. Once they press on the area, push down. And that's the engine cover. So now it's time to put the splash shield back up that I took down when I drained the radiator. And there's 4 push pins in the front. So I'm gonna put one in. There's 6 overall. There's 4 in the front and 2 hidden in the back here. You see them right there. I'm gonna put the 4 front ones in first. Kind of difficult to get to. Then we've got the 2 in the back here. So it's got that little arm, it's gonna go up. And then one over here. And that's it. So now we're going to reinstall the fender flare and inner fender well cover. First thing I'm going to do is reconnect my electrical connector. line up the lock, snap it into place, and then I'm going to make sure I put the tabs back into the body. So there's the sleeve that you can slide it on and rest it. And all the body pins and clips seem to line right up. And just give it a push. You can hear them all clicking into place. And now I'm going to mount all the bolts that I need to access. First, let's give it a quick visual, make sure all the pins are in. They are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're all in place. Okay. This thing was in such a hurry to get up in there. Went the wrong way. Okay. There we go. There's a clip right here. There's a clip up in here. See right there? I'm going to put this tab down over it. There, lock that in. There we go. I'm going to put this bolt in first. It's a 10mm socket. I'm just tightening, I'm not going to really tighten it down. I want to get everything else lined up before I snug everything down. So we have 5 more 10mm sockets. I can see one goes here. One there. Got one up here. Two left. One in the front. Then I'm going with right up inside here. So where that cutout is, there's an actual threaded slot up there for this bolt. So everything is in place and just snug. Now I'm going to put all my push pins in before I tighten everything down. And I can see here that I have 6 small push pins and then this one special one. I'm going to put these small 6 ones right in place. Lamp right here. Flip is still in, good. So I want to find out where that other one went. There it goes, right inside there. So now I can put this one here. And that bit. This one has the teeth on it. So that goes right in the slotted spot in here. Perfect. Now with all the push pins in, my fender seems to be nice and lined up still. I'm going to snug up the one that has an adjustment to it. As you can see, I'm moving from the center out. That's just years of habit. last one.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at 1AAuto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.